Hey, I want to thank you all for being here today. This is good. It's going to be good. And the reason why it's going to be good is because our whole intent is to help people that are in need, that maybe be suffering out there, that might be dealing with some things that they feel like are out of their control. They can't control in any which way. That's tearing them up inside, whether it's loss, especially loss of someone they loved, or something tragic, or maybe even some childhood trauma that they're dealing with. What's significant about this episode is that we're going to talk to two people. Cliff, who's an active duty firefighter, who was actually called to a scene of tragedy, and you had to deal with that. You have to live with that. You probably left a little piece of your soul there with that experience. And then we get to talk to Brad, who had to deal with some significant personal family tragedy that I think you turned into the best, most positive way you can in an effort to help others, in an effort to save lives. And really that's what we're talking about here today. We're talking about how do you turn tragedy into triumph?
Right.
How do you make sense of something that is so bad into something that can be good, but for others? That's what we're talking about here. And we're talking about how God plays a significant role in making it all make sense and taking something and making it good. So I want to thank both of you all for being here. And Neil.
Yeah, I'm excited is the wrong word. I'm excited to have both of you here because I know both of you as men of character, men of faith, who have dealt with a lot of tragedy in life. A big part of it is from the profession you chose. My dad was a firefighter, so
my dad was a cop.
Well, that's kind of ironic, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I kind of came from a first responder, service first kind of family, and I know how hard that could be on the family and on the first responders themselves. Appreciate what you do, and we've got to know each other a little better over the last year or so, and I'm really glad we have. I got a lot of respect for you. And Brad, we've known each other for a few years now. First met through, it was an event for Dak Prescott's foundation, Faith Fight Finish. And we were able to meet there. And I was aware of the story, having been living in the area when it happened. But once I got to know you, I got to learn a lot more about you, your beautiful wife. You got an amazing family. And I got to say, you're one of the strongest men I know. Because I can't imagine how hard this has been, but to see you take something so devastating and turn it into good for others, brother, I respect that more than I can tell you. Before we get down into too deep into the stories, though, if y'all don't mind, just for everybody who's watching, tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your business.
Okay. Well, I grew up in Granbury, Texas, so small town kid. Had two wonderful parents. My dad was an electrician, then he did some stuff in the nuclear power industry. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, so two brothers and sisters. So I grew up in a very, very lucky, very fortunate to grow up in this area. I'm a Texan, through and through. Fort Worth is in my blood. I love this city. I live in Fort Worth now. And graduated from Granbury. I'm a West Point graduate, so I went to West Point. Did 5 years in the Army. We could talk a little bit, about that as well. I never got shot at, but I got buddies who went through some stuff, and I did that and became an entrepreneur. Started a company called Ustream, we used to do this kind of stuff, podcasts, and I was there with Rogan. Started his very first podcast.
Nice.
I was nudging him on to do it, so I have a little bit of familiarity from this world, more. Not on camera, but behind the scenes. And I sold that to IBM. And now I run a company here in Fort Worth called Linear Labs, which is where we're at, ironically, that does electric motors. And my father and I made a discovery many years ago and bringing that technology to market. And then most importantly, I'm married, I have a wonderful wife, my high school sweetheart. I have 3 kids. One's 21, she's in college. About to be 22, and then I got a 13-year-old daughter now, and then as we'll talk about, we lost Hayden tragically in 2020 to suicide 4 days before his 13th birthday.
Wow.
And that set off a whole other path in my life that I never ever expected, or frankly was pretty ignorant on, to be honest with you. And so since then, I have several foundations that we have in his honor. I work closely. You and I both work closely with Dak. His brother took his life 6 days after Hayden took his life, and so that common pain.
Yeah,
We've done a lot of the really, I think, special things, and just like you were saying, how can we help people? Suicide is obviously the number 2 killer of, or not obviously, but it's the number 2 killer, certainly of kids, but with fentanyl up there, it's probably the number 2 or number 3 killer of people. And all the way, at least up to the age of 35. And so, that just can't happen in this country. And so I've spent the last 5 years having to process it, and figure out what that meant to me and my life. And then many, many years of that trying to just see if I can make some kind of difference. And like I like to tell people, his life mattered to me, my family, obviously. But maybe his death can matter too, in a way that's positive and hopefully lasting. So
I can tell you are making a difference, brother. No question about it. Don't ever question that.
thank you.
You want to tell us a little bit about yourself there, Cliff?
Yeah. So I grew up in Azle, Texas, just down the road. My boys I was telling Brad earlier, my boys are 7th generation from Azle. So we've been around a little while out that way. And my dad was a police officer, retired from North Richland Hills PD, and then my mom was a nurse. So first responder stuff was that's all I knew growing up.
It's in your blood.
It is. And had a great childhood. I remember as a kid, I always wanted to be a firefighter. My dad would always play softball against the fire department, PD versus FD, and he'd go get ice at the fire station. And I remember walking in and going like, "This is where it's at." So, yeah, he kind of planted that seed in me. And I was about to graduate when I was 17, and at the time I wanted to be a firefighter, a police sketch artist, or a rodeo clown. That was my what I was striving to be. And my mom said, "You cannot draw that good, and you're not going to be a rodeo clown." So firefighter it is. So
There you go.
here it was. So went to school and started testing around, and I ended up getting on when I was 19, and I felt like I was about 15 when I got on. So almost 25 years now in the fire service, and I work for Fort Worth Fire Department, and married to my wife. It'll be 20 years in a few more months.
Congratulations, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got 3 kids. Charlie is my daughter. She's 17. And then Logan, my son's 15. And then Abraham, my other son, is 13. So, yeah, we got all the hormones in the house right now. But, about 3.5, 4 years ago, I ended up getting diagnosed with line of duty cancer. It's one of the biggest things the fire service is looking at right now. They're trying to combat it. It's really killing a lot of our guys. And so,
What do you think? It's like chemicals and things that are
definitely the chemicals. So, everything right here is really made out of plastic. It looks like wood, but it's plastic. So when we go in there, we're just getting dosed. It's like a hazmat scene with everything you can imagine, over and over and over again. We found out recently our gear is made out of carcinogens. So they're trying to fix that. It's just the deck stacked against us. So
No, it makes sense. I mean, 9/11 happened 24 years ago yesterday, and we still have the first responders and folks that are living around ground zero that help there, that every day or every other day are being diagnosed or dying of cancer right now. So we know that this stuff is carcinogens and are causing a lot of death.
My dad's the former firefighter is fighting cancer now, has been for a few years, and I can't help but think, especially then, the respirators, all the equipment. I mean, it was nothing like what luckily we have for firefighters today. But I can't help but think that's contributed to what he's going through. How much do you think that equipment has really changed the game for your future firefighters, or maybe they're not going to have to deal with the cancer?
yeah, absolutely. It's we're changing. We're having to take care of ourselves in this thing because there's not always funding to do it. So we're having to change a lot of our processes. And we're a traditional group of people. So
Change isn't easy.
change is not something we really strive to do all the time. So we're having to kind of step back. And, for a while, we kind of said, well, that's not that big of a deal until you start losing brothers. And it becomes a big deal really quick when you have to, hand their kiddos a folded flag at a funeral service. So we've walked through that.
That's another fight when it's your PPE, isn't that what they call it?
Yep.
Personal protective equipment. And your own PPE is what is slowly killing you, potentially.
Yeah, so the waterproof liner has carcinogens in it. And,
Wow.
yeah, there's all sorts of things that are just kind of fighting against what we're doing, but we have a tremendous amount of processes and things we do differently than we used to do. So hopefully the next generation, we can't get away from it all. And we know that, and we're still willing to put our lives on the line, but the next generation is going to hopefully have a better outcome
Yeah.
than a lot of our current guys right now. But yeah, I got diagnosed with cancer, testicular cancer, had a surgery, go back to work. 4 months later, got diagnosed with another form of cancer underneath my right kidney. It was rapid growing. I had to have chemo and radiation. And man, I tell you what, you hear the doctor say you have cancer, and that will just change a lot of things in your life rapidly and make you question every decision you've ever made. And it messes with you. So on top of the stress of being a first responder, then you have that. So we can go into a little bit later if we want to, but I'm the fire chaplain now of the Fort Worth Fire Department, one of two. And that was never something I wanted to be. But after my second diagnosis, the doctor said, you need to take a break from going in the smoke. You can't be a firefighter anymore. I said, well, I have to be a firefighter. That's what I do. 2 days later, the chief put out a memo saying, I'm looking for a fire chaplain. And my wife's like, oh, this is from God. And I was like, heck no, I'm a firefighter. I'm not a chaplain. And but God knew what he was doing. And there was an identity shift that had to take place because I was already doing a lot of this stuff in the fire stations and at my church. But out of that, through that last bout with cancer, God really changed my heart. And so now I get to take care of my brothers and sisters and help them walk through all their tough times. The first thing I did when I became a chaplain was sit with one of my brothers as he was having chemo and radiation treatments.
Wow.
And we got to cry together because I was still pretty raw for my stuff. That stuff tears you down. Yeah. And I got to sit with him, and we could relate like nobody else could. And that's when I knew, like, okay, God knows what he's doing, and I'm here for a reason. So
absolutely, man. Wow.
I think, what is it like? Isn't it saying that the closer you are to death, the more you start thinking about life, and it draws you closer to God.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's difficult. We're stubborn, humans are just stubborn.
No doubt.
We almost need, instead of a knock on the door, we almost sometimes need our door to get kicked in for us to get on our knees and look up. As horrible as that may sound, but there is some goodness from that, I suppose. And we'll talk about that.
Yeah. A little bit about more about you there, Brad. I keyed in on the Joe Rogan thing. So you were there from the very beginning on his podcast. You guys,
he's asked me to go on it like 5 times, and I never did it. He wasn't as big back then.
Yet you did ours.
Yes, but I'm here 100%. 100%. Yeah.
We know where
it's at. What's up, Joe?
Nice. Yeah.
What's up, Joe?
So how did you even get to know Joe Rogan?
So Ustream was one of the first, if not the first, live broadcasting platforms on the internet. But me and 2 other buddies started it. I was working for the Perot's at the time, and we had built a little app to do live streaming, which now anybody can do, but at the time nobody could really do it, certainly not at the scale, and decided to take a chance and went to Silicon Valley. I just had Hayden, my son, so I went to Silicon Valley and left for 6 months, like on a deployment kind of thing, because we didn't have the money to come back. I was like, I'm going there to go. That's where the investors are that I heard, so I'm going there to go try to figure this out. And we just started building it up. We built a platform that anybody could do this, and a lot of it was podcasting. We did a lot of celebrity stuff. Charlie Sheen had his little incident on Ustream live on the internet. We did a lot of sports. And
what did Charlie do?
Tiger Blood and winning.
Oh, he started going off.
Yeah, that was on Ustream.
Charlie.
I got a lot of stories about that. But we started doing some sports. And Joe was a UFC announcer.
Right.
And a much longer story, but at the time I got in with the UFC, we became their official streaming partner. They weren't streaming fights live on the internet; it was only on TV. So we were the first place they did that with, and I got to know Joe, and through that experience, and got to know some of his people and the people around him that were doing things. And so if you go look at it, JRE #1. It doesn't look very good because the technology wasn't like this today.
Yeah.
It's pretty grainy, but it was the first one. I think he like called me in the middle of it too. I'm like helping him figure out the chat and the broadcast and stuff like that. But until I sold the company to IBM, he was on Joe Rogan's Experience was on Ustream. And because we were friends, he was loyal to me. And then when I sold it, he got a big offer from YouTube, and then he bounced to YouTube, and then he got a really big offer to go to Spotify, and that's where he really blew up, obviously. But that was all the early days of streaming, and all this stuff sort of was built on. We were the first to do a live broadcast, like to actually watch one on a phone. Was Barack Obama's inauguration. We did that live, first time ever Apple had done anything, any phone, and then the first to broadcast. So like record your kid's game, or if we were to put, you can do it now from anybody's phone. We were the first to do that too, and that was we started in 07, and we sold it in 2016.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then how long from then until you started Linear Labs?
So that took a couple of years off, needed a break, and it was probably a couple of years after that, like 3 years or something like that. We started messing around with the potential of the technology. It's based on a new type of motor generator topology. And so we went through a lot of prototypes. I built my dad like a little shop on his land, and we just started tinkering, literally like just trying to figure something out. And it comes out of a pretty cool story where we'd gone on a hunt in Africa. And I tell people, there's poverty, and then there's like poverty.
Yeah.
And I was just so shocked, frankly. I just didn't know what in modern days, people just did not have like basic things like clean water, and how many people were dying from it. And so the original idea was, could we take like an old timey Texas windmill that's on a farm, which pumps water, moves vertically up and down like this. And could we create some sort of generator device so that I could take it to Africa, and we could like give a village clean water, but at the same time, maybe some lights, or I always wanted to like put some batteries and bury a hot water heater, and they could like wash their hands and get clean, and the physics said it wasn't possible, and that's the problem we were trying to solve. We bought a windmill, not a wind turbine, but a windmill, put it on my dad's land, and made the discovery, and then, did the whole thing again, and raise capital, build a team, and just try to bring it to market. So we still haven't done the Africa thing. I still want to at some point, but we chose the business route first. But it came out of that just seeing a lot of suffering.
Dad, I'm fascinated with people like you, entrepreneurs, who are willing to risk it all on an idea, right? But then obviously something I know nothing about is being intelligent enough to come up with these ideas in the first place. I mean, and it's not even like you're trying to improve on somebody else's idea. You're coming up with things that are fresh and new that nobody else has got. And I think that's a unique quality some people have and some people just don't. I wish I had it, because there's so many things I would like to solve. But man, the fact that you not only came up with them, but you put it all on the line to make sure you did everything you could to make that dream a reality. That's gutsy, man.
Yeah, starting companies, I tell people, I know a lot of entrepreneurs, and it's a lifestyle. It's a stressful thing when you're the guy at the top, and you've got investors, you've got employees who are trying to recruit. Because I can't do it alone. There's no way. Right. I've hired, thank goodness, both companies, very, very smart people, who then have to believe in the vision and willing to work sometimes nights and weekends, or a lot of times. I slept in, like you said, I slept in the office so many times it wasn't even funny.
Like Elon Musk.
Yeah, 100%. You just kind of got to go all in. There's not really it's hard to dip your toe in and actually do something big like that. And it actually creates an interesting dynamic, because when you're all in, you're all in. Like,
there's no plan B.
There's no plan B. You got to figure it out. And it actually, in some ways, or many ways, probably creates a lot of the dynamics of working through things. Because, if you stop, it fails, right? And if you don't got a plan B, you got to do what you got to do.
I like that you're an entrepreneur for good.
Yeah.
And most people don't know, especially in the Western world, that the majority of people, just like you said in Africa, I mean, not having clean water is actually a common. Not having running water, not having hot water, not having electricity, not knowing where you're going to eat the next day, not having refrigeration, that's actually more the norm in your third and fifth world countries. And so when you saw extreme poverty, and I think, like you said, I think the number one or two reason why people are dying in Africa and other unmodernized areas is like dysentery,
Yeah.
which is totally preventable and curable at this stage and age, especially in modern day life. So you see that, and you're like, let me think about this problem. How can we get clean water? How can we do something good? And you start creating from there. And of course, profit margins and all this stuff come. But the fact of creating something to do good for people is the essence of being a good person.
You know, the UN has keeps a metric. It's called the Human Health Index or something like that, where they measure the predictive factor of what a country that's going to be successful would look like. And the measurement that they use is actually, it all comes back down to energy access. And that's how, now we're in the energy business. We do windmills or wind turbines. But the fundamental driver at its most baseline of helping lift suffering in any civilization is access to energy. So kilowatt per hour, per dollar, per capita kind of thing. And so more access to cheaper energy lifts human suffering in a country, and it's black and white to the point where the UN literally tracks that metric.
Wow.
And that's going to be solved through technology, at least partially. We can drill, but you know, continuing to get access to drive those prices down, at least a big portion of that can be a technology play, and that's where entrepreneurs have to step in and come up with new stuff, solve tough ideas, solve tough problems that sometimes people may not have thought was solvable.
Right, make that difference for good. Oh, it's fun. So we're going to probably get into something pretty hard, something pretty difficult, but I think there's going to be a lot of good to come out of it. And I know you've suffered a very significant tragedy that I would say most people would never be able to recover from. And something that wouldn't wish on anybody. As a matter of fact, I would say all good people, moms and dads, would rather die 100 deaths than to outlive their own children. So, would you mind speaking about that journey? What happened?
Well, the story of Hayden, this happened during the pandemic, during the lockdown, and that December, right before the pandemic, Hayden got a computer monitor that he wanted. He wanted it for Christmas. He got it from Santa or whatever, right? And we got him this new computer monitor, and he played this video game called Fortnite. I don't know if you guys played it, but I don't know if they still do it. But at the time, like literally every kid in America was playing this video game, Fortnite. You know, they put the headphones on, and we didn't have that when we were kids, right? It was Mario, Super Mario. It was a lot more boring. But these games are very engaging, very real, and there's a lot of beauty to that, but there's also some risk factors that we can talk about. And but he got the computer monitor, and he loved playing that game. And so I remember it was like February of 2020. So the pandemic was starting to happen. You know, the grumblings of lockdowns and masks and these things were starting to sort of trickle. And then they shut the schools down, right? They stopped going to school. And Hayden was playing this video game, playing Fortnite one day, and I wasn't there. I don't know the full details, but what he told me, he came down and told me he had broke his computer monitor. And I guess he had gotten mad at the game, you know, and lost or something, and he took that controller and he chunked it over his head, and it hit that LCD monitor and just shattered it. You know, they're pretty weak monitors. You crack one, it can kind of and it's done. And he came out and told me, and you know, I was like, dude, that was expensive. Like that was your nice Christmas present. You did. I can't fix it. And I was pretty straightforward. I was like, look, dude, you're not getting another one. It is what it is. You can't get mad at these video games because, and every parent who has a kid that video games probably attest to this, kids get pretty mad at these video games. And there's some real science and chemistry reasons why this is happening. And just as outbursts that are just unhealthy. and he had one. He'd get mad at these games, and I told him, you're not going to get one. And then the lockdown happened. Then they closed the schools, and he didn't have anything else to do, right? And so he came down and told me about 2 weeks before his death, and he said, hey, can I get another computer monitor? And I said, yeah. We talked to your mom. I said, but you're going to work, because now we're in the pandemic. He's got, no, I got nothing to do. Yeah, I don't, I'm going to talk to my friends. We were scared to let our kids talk to the DoorDash guy. I didn't know what was going on, right? So we're all just hunkering down, thinking we're safe at our house. And so I made him work, a bunch of chores, and told him he had to be nicer to his little sister, because they would always go at it. They're both pretty similar. And so my wife, we bought him another monitor. It was a little cheapo Amazon monitor, but he could play again, right?
Yeah.
And the day he died, it was a beautiful sunny day. My water well in my house had broke, and I hadn't seen my dad since the pandemic, so I call him, and he comes over, and me, Hayden, and him, we fixed the water well. And it was like 3 hours worth of work or whatever. And I kissed him on top of the head. He came up for whatever reason. I remember this totally distinctly. And he said, I love you, Dad. And he was about this tall to me. He came up to me just randomly, gave me a hug, and I kissed his head, the top of his head. And he went upstairs, and I took a phone call for 30 minutes. And I walked out of the room, and my 8-year-old daughter came down the stairs and said, hey, he didn't hug himself. And didn't even know how to process that. I ran upstairs as fast as I could. I won't obviously talk to the details, but it was horrific. And tried to save him. I happened to have an AED in my house, and I told my little daughter, I tried to keep her away from it as much as I can. My wife had left to go run an errand, and she went downstairs, got my cell phone, brought me the AED that she didn't really know what it was. She was only 8, but I told her it was that medical device in the pantry, and couldn't get to work, and obviously called 911 and everything, and obviously I tried, and then there was a young officer who came around the corner from the first call from the Tarrant County Police Department, I believe. Yeah, Tarrant County cop. I bet he was 22.
Yeah.
Something like this. And I look up at him as I was doing chest compressions, and I looked at his face, and I knew it was bad. I mean, there's just he didn't mean to give me that face, but he was in such shock and such horror what he was seeing.
Yeah.
I knew it was serious, because I didn't know. I didn't.
Right.
I was in the military with West Point training. I'm doing what the 911 operator said to do. And we both tried to get his AED to work, and unfortunately, these kind of situations, there's a very thin line between surviving something and not surviving something, and particularly when blood flow was lost, and I guess he didn't have an electrical pulse anymore, so the AED wasn't going to fire without an electrical pulse. So we were both trying and couldn't get it to work. And I remember then I guess the EMTs came, the ambulance people, and they got him downstairs, and they tried, like, these guys, they weren't messing around. They tried. I'd walked outside, and it's a beautiful day, and I'm like out of my body almost. I'm spinning around. I'm looking. I cannot believe. It's hard to process.
It's like a bad dream. Like
bad dream. It was like everything started going in slow motion. And I remember at one point I turned, because they waited for a while to work on him at my house before they left. They weren't driving. I think it's, from my understanding, they try to stabilize as much as they can. So they felt like the ambulance stayed there forever before they left the Cook's Children's Hospital. And I remember one of the guys coming out, one of the EMTs, and the guy's head to toe covered in sweat, and he's just like this. He could barely stand up. He was so exhausted. And the cop who came around the corner, he said he'd take me to the hospital, because my wife was meeting me now at the hospital. I had to call her on the phone and tell her what happened, which was awful. Uh-huh. And the ambulance went, and that young cop drove me and said goodbye and everything. And I went inside, and I guess my wife had got there before me, and I had to go through COVID protocol, so I couldn't get into the ER real fast. So I went through all the COVID stuff, and I walked to the back, and my wife is just sitting there bawling, right by Hayden, and they're working, they're trying to save him, the doctors, and he had tubes all in him, and I mean, it's just a shocking thing to see, and I told him I didn't want her in. I said, "Go, you got to get out of here." So I just told her go to another room. So my parents had showed up, so she's all waiting there with my parents, and the doctor turned and looked at me, and he said, "Sir, we're going to try one more time." And I'm like in shock. I think I don't even. Yeah. And I still pissed at myself that I didn't grab it and say, "No, you'll stop when I say stop." Like I didn't. But I didn't know, man. And they're trying their best. And he turned and looked at me and he said, the time, whatever it was, and he said, "Sir, I'm so sorry for your loss." And I turned around, and there's like 20 doctors. I didn't even know they were standing there, and they all just looked at me shocked. No one said anything. No one said a word to me. And I just started walking down the hallway, and I look off at the distance, and I see my mom and my wife like 100 feet away or something.
Yeah.
It was the longest walk of my life. I didn't know when to tell them. Do I tell them 100 feet away, or do I tell them when I got there? And I got up close, and I just said, "He didn't make it." And I turned and looked to my left. My dad was sitting there, and I just saw his head go down. I wish it on nobody.
Yeah.
Suicide, it's definitely the number 2 killer of kids. And about 50% of all youth suicide have a previous mental health illness diagnosis. About the other 50% don't. And of all youth suicide, about 55% of them are impulsive, which means they made the decision very rapidly. Hayden was a normal kid, man. We went through his text messages and loved by his friends. He didn't like the lockdown. He was moping about that a little bit, but for all intents and purposes, he's a normal kid. Loved sports, loved football. And we did first few days, we were like, where did this come from? Like, I was just with you, dude. Had no clue. And I remember because the cops got to do their job. They had to come to the hospital, and we're still just processing it, and I'm getting interviewed, right? Rightfully so, because they don't know what's going on, but the detectives, and the detective tells me, "Hey, well, what's up with that computer monitor that's broken?" I said, "Oh, I know. He broke it a couple months ago. That one that's sitting on the ground." He's like, "No, the one on his desk." I said, No. That's his new one. This one on on the one on the ground is the one that's broken." He's like, "That's not what the detectives are telling me." And I was like, "What?" And so that then know much more than that.
Yeah.
They let us go, and it stinks because like these hospitals, and you've probably seen them, Chief. You've probably seen them. They got like these little. They're kind of like a little mini church thing where you go basically say bye to your loved one, or at least they do at the Children's Hospital. And he's there, and they put warm blankets on him to make him feel not cold, and you say your goodbyes. And then it's just like, they're like, "You're free to go home." I'm like, "What?" I'm just leaving my son here, and I'm just free to go home. Like, what is it? What do I do?
Yeah. And
I go home, again, not knowing still what happened. I mean, my wife and my daughters went to my parents' house. They didn't want to go back. And I get there late. I was going to go pick up a bunch of clothes and go head to Granbury, but we're going to go stay at my dad's house. And I walk in, and I see my 2 neighbors, and they had came over. They had come down the stairs from my house, and they were cleaning up, because when someone dies, obviously it's not very pretty. And so I'm thanking them, hugging them for trying to help me and everything. And I hated the fact that they had to go through that too. Like, their lives were suddenly witnessing something. And then CPS is at the door at 11 o'clock at night, which, again, doing their job. They come in, they're grilling me, doing all this stuff. They didn't leave till like 1 a.m. And I just drug my butt to Granbury, to go see my family. I still hadn't seen him since the hospital. And long story short, turned out he had broke his computer monitor again for a second time on accident, and it just clipped the corner. And the whole thing went like this. And he just made an impulsive decision. And again, there's a lot of science behind youth development and brain development. The prefrontal cortex in a kid's not fully developed. We tend to make decisions when we don't use our prefrontal cortex with the amygdala.
Yeah.
And very rapidly, impulsively. And youth are especially vulnerable to that kind of decision making. And then honestly, I think, we just launched a new platform called goodgamer.org that I'm real proud of, where we teach mental health, how to game healthy. I think we were letting game too much. I mean, what else you can do? It's COVID, and
Right.
And suicide's always complicated. It's always complicated. It's never one thing. But in youth, it tends to be. It looks a little different than in youth versus 5 of my West Point buddies have taken their lives since Hayden died. And it's something different. PTSD from war. But it's always complicated, and it affects everybody.
This is just an extremely tough one, because then you start reflecting back of when Hayden came out to you, he said, "I love you, Dad." Was he saying goodbye? And I'm sure you're racking yourself in your mind, brother, because that's just tough. I had a friend, team guy, his son, 16 years old, got his first car. After he got his first car, 2 weeks after he drove it, he crashed. He got in an accident. He's a new driver. He's a young driver. But 2 weeks after he did it, he took his life too. Is that like that? That's replaceable. Those were replaceable, but to a young, maybe immature mind, like you're saying, who's thinking more emotionally, rationally, like this might be the end all in their mind, but we know it's not. And then they might make a decision that is permanent in a very temporal situation. And then probably, we all know, we'd probably take it back now if you could, or maybe I saw what you did with that video, almost 13. And I appreciate your courage and strength for producing that, to try to share that with everybody, to save, in the attempt to save lives, so they can look for the signals that our children might show that could potentially trigger a reaction to save them, to help them, to get them what they might need, what they might be looking for, so they don't make that bad decision. Because there is a chance that maybe he got himself into something that he couldn't get himself out of, potentially. Like maybe he didn't really mean.
I think we'll never know.
Yeah.
And I never even looked at his computer to see what was on there. I just didn't. I don't care. It is what it's not going to change anything, right? So I don't know if he got bullied. I don't know. But again, he got mad. We know that. For my 8-year-old, when he did it, she was in the room and she told him to get out of the room. And so we found out about it from her like multiple days later. She was only 8, and she told our neighbor, and the neighbor came and told me like 2 or 3 days. And so now it all started making more sense. But what I've learned about suicide, and again, I didn't know anything about suicide. I didn't know much about mental health, depression, anxiety, anger, whatever. At its foundation, it comes down to hope. And in Hayden's case, that was his world. It was 4 days before his birthday. He knew he couldn't have a birthday because of COVID, birthday party. He was going to have one friend over, and they were going to play Fortnite. He thought, that was everything to him. That was his world. Other buddies and people that I know that have taken their lives at those bottom of that triangle of taking it, right? It's I've lost hope, and I don't see a way out.
Yeah.
And look, trust me, our buddies have gone, the war PTSD is real. Policing and firefighting PTSD is real. But life can also cause PTSD. Yeah. And I had bad PTSD for a while. And you normally manifest about 6 months after a tragic event, nightmares. And, I had those thoughts. I'm like, should I be dead too? And whatever anybody's situation is, when they no longer see a path out and there's no hope, that's when it gets scary. And again, even if it's impulsive, like in my son's case, it was in that moment. He felt that for at least just for that moment, there wasn't a path out. Dad's getting mad at me, yada, 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 all these sort of things.
Right.
And it's just not ever true, though. It's never true.
What was it for you that made you realize that it wasn't true? Because I don't think anybody's going to fault you for being in a bad place after what you experienced. But was there something that triggered that mindset shift or got you going in the right direction?
I think when something like that happens to you that's so shocking, you've got to go through a period of, you're like in a fog for the first, it's like a fog for like the first month. You don't know up, down, left, right. The world in a way has violated you, whatever that's happened in your life so bad, it's hard to process it. And so I had to come, I think, to terms with that acceptance that it's not going to change. Like I just said, like that this is the new reality. I felt lucky and blessed that it caused me to, turn back to think about faith and God. I asked a simple question like, "Is Hayden? Where is he? Is there any chance that he exists?" It was that simple of a question. Is there a chance he exists still? And from that practical question, I started on a journey, not always perfect and everything, but, to sort of find hope. It's something beyond the ways of this world, right? And without that, that's been absolutely critical. And my family's been great. And then frankly, the other one for me, and not everybody's called to this, but, finding purpose. And the death of Hayden, I tell people, it's awful. And what I've seen, I know you guys have seen, that stuff is awful. You can't deny that. That's just truth. Yeah. But what I've learned, it's not awful with a period at the end of the sentence. It's just not. And out of his death, as hard as it's been, man, we've done some cool stuff. And I cannot deny that part's beautiful.
Yeah.
That is beautiful. From the work we've done with kids and working with Dak and the movie we made. There's been a lot of other things we've done. That's beautiful. So I've been very fortunate.
Yeah.
I thank God that maybe it's because I'm an entrepreneur, have some skills that I've been able to put some things together to try to help other people and find purpose, because that means his life mattered to me and my family, but now his death matters. And I've changed the script of I'm trying to change the script of how it matters.
Yeah, you flipped that script of tragedy into triumph, where now Hayden, his life continues in his memory, in the goodness and the lives that you're helping, in the suicide prevention and education that you're giving out to everybody now. And now I think more parents, more family members are aware of what could happen potentially and looking out for the signs to protect their kids in ways they didn't think they have to. Like, we always look to, how can we physically protect our kids? We always look for the stranger out there on the street, don't touch the stove, it's hot. But you don't see mental illness. You don't see invisible suffering, even if it's just a moment of emotionality. And that's what's happening within children, I think. And how's your daughter doing? How's she doing?
She's good. I mean, look, thanks for asking, because everyone usually asks about me and my wife, and he's got two sisters. And my oldest daughter, she struggled. She was very motherly. They were very close. She struggled for a while, and went to counseling. I'm a big believer in counseling. We talk about this. I'm a big believer. There are all sorts of modalities that can be helpful. Maybe we could talk about some for PTSD. So we went through a period of counseling. I found this wonderful man named Jeremy Lelick from Metroplex Counseling. He's also happened to be the global founder of the Association of Biblical Counselors. He became my personal counselor. Saved me, saved my wife, saved my oldest daughter and my youngest daughter. We went to him for a while. So my oldest daughter went through a period. She's doing really good now. And then my youngest daughter, when kids are young and they lose a brother or sister. She was 8. The next day, she's still playing. We told her he went to heaven, and she was like, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But what can happen, and happens quite often, is you sort of, as you get a little older, you start going, and she's 12 or she's 13 now, almost 14. You start going, whoa, okay, that was serious. And you can actually relive it in the background of your subconscious, and it can manifest itself in things like, things like PTSD, but also some like, nervous tics and things, things like that, OCD like symptoms, traumatic OCD. And she went through a period where she was suffering some traumatic OCD about age 12, went through before about a year or so. We got her help. You find it early, and she's like I've told her, it's her superpower now. She's really good at sports, and she's doing really, really, really good. And then my wife, obviously the mother, that one was tough. And I put my effort into work. She wasn't ready necessarily to do that at the same level I was, and that's okay. But she's able to refound God. She's got her sea legs underneath her. And just, she's doing really well.
Moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And you learn to move with it.
Yeah.
It's probably the way to, I like to think. You don't move past it.
Right.
You don't move on. You move with PTSD and pain and suffering like that. And it's hard to do that without believing in something bigger than all of us. It's really hard to do.
I don't know how you heal if you don't believe in the great I am, and have that understanding that we're all going to see each other again, that there will be the reunion.
Now, when
It'll
you
be good.
created the movie, which, by the way, thank you, because the lessons it taught in there for parents about the importance of conversations, that hit home for me. Because I was one of those parents, like many, who thought, well, my kids are fine. I don't really need to talk to them. I started thinking about how much time my son spent on Fortnite, specifically. I started thinking, you know what? You don't always see the signs. The time to have the conversation is now. So, I mean, I don't remember if I finished the movie before I went and talked to my son. I did finish the movie, but I was like, no, I got to do this right now. Matter of fact, I think I had him watch it with me because I wanted him to see it. And he was aware of it, the whole tragedy that happened, but I realized I wasn't doing what I needed to be doing. So what you're doing is affecting not just the lives of a lot of young people. You're affecting knuckleheads like me who need to get our heads out of the clouds, start paying attention to what's going on in our kids' lives. And something else that you've been involved with, not quite as public as that. Earlier, you mentioned when you were checking text messages, Hayden's friends. You never lost contact with them. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've been able to do with them and why it's been so important?
Well, one, Hayden loved them. Hayden loved his friends. And therefore, obviously, we loved them. And they lost Hayden. They lost somebody too, period. And they're young. I've seen enough, I'm an older guy, not that I'm perfect or it wasn't easy, but, I got more resources, more life experience. They were kids. They were all 12 years old. One of them was supposed to come over the next day. And so for me, it's really, really important that they just know that I'm fighting. I'm going to be okay. And if I can do it, so can you. We're going to do this together. So I've stayed in a lot of contact, tried to go to many of their football games, which was hard at first, it's real, but it's like anything. Now I love it. I mean, it's glory. I mean, Hayden's with me. Like, it's a beautiful thing. I do try as much as I can to help counsel grieving parents. And I tell them, oh, look, keep fighting, because right now, when you look at their picture, you see tears, but one day you're just going to smile and be like, yeah, that's my boy. And so that's very important. And the movie was something we were really proud of. Almost 13, free on YouTube, won the 2021 Global Documentary of the Year, 16 minutes. And we talk about why it is important to sit down and have a conversation. And we talk actually how to do that in the movie. And not just about suicide, it's all the stuff that kids go through. And I mean, I know I had conversations, but we didn't talk to him about suicide 100%. I didn't even know the signs. I didn't know I needed to have the conversation. I thought there's man, what happened to my kids? But guess what? I had a fire plan. All my kids knew the plan to get out and get a fire. That's how my daughter went and got the neighbors. She followed the fire plan. An 8-year-old girl, Liz, was listening to me, went and got the neighbors, and I knew which neighbors to go get too. And so they'll listen. And it's not a fun conversation. It's like dad's talking to your daughter about,
Heavy,
stuff with boys. I ain't comfortable, but you got to do it. And what we know from the data is you cannot put that thought in a child's head. So by having the conversation, that's a common misperception. They're not going to suddenly go take their life. And what you're going to find out is, do they even know what it is? And if they've had those thoughts, and guess what? If they've had those thoughts, don't you want to know? Because now we can solve it. And that's kind of the conversation. And then if they haven't had those thoughts, then if you ever do, what can we do different than that? Let's talk through that. And you're actually creating, neurons we used to, it's like practicing or in the Army, we used to war game and stuff. It's, you're at least you have a plan, right? And that, I believe with all my heart, had I done that with Hayden, because he told me the first time, a great relationship. I think if I had sat down with him, talked to him about it, he comes down and tells me the second time. I honestly believe that. He would have got mad, and I think he was mad. I think he was mad at himself. But I think he would have, in that moment, I would have given him a little light to follow. And that's what you're doing when you have that conversation. Because look, we've all been in the heat of the moment, and this is in this case very impulsive. And if they have thought about it, or I've had parents tell me that they found out their kids were cutters.
Yeah.
And they had no idea. I had a lady tell me, she wrote me, and she said, Brad, actually a gentleman said, Brad, I want to thank you for saving my daughter's life. And I was like, what? And it was on the email. And he goes, no, you don't understand. He goes, I saw your video. So I sat down and had a conversation with my daughter, and I found out she was cutting. And she, but he had the conversation. They talked it through. Conversations matter. Well, a couple weeks later, she came down the stairs and said, Daddy, I did something wrong. She had taken like 80 Tylenol pills, and she goes unconscious in front of him as a seizure. Had he not had that conversation,
yeah,
he said he would have found her in her room.
Yeah.
That one conversation.
Wow. That's powerful stuff, man.
Hayden is saving lives to this day.
No doubt. So you want to shift gears for just a minute, give you a chance to catch your breath. That's a lot, man. That is a lot to talk about. I'd love to come back and talk a little more about what you're doing. But Cliff, if you don't mind, if we direct our attention at you momentarily. You said almost 25 years.
Yes, sir.
You've seen a lot. Having worked in the same city, maybe different side of the hall, but we all respond to a lot of the same calls. We see a lot of the same tragedy. And I remember I've got several friends on the Fort Worth Fire Department, and I've had some conversations with some. My dad was one to not talk about it much when he was a firefighter. Once he was through firefighting, he became a pastor. He talked about it a little bit in his sermons, and that's where I could really see the emotion, how much he was carrying moral injuries. He was carrying internal wounds. I heard recently when several folks from American Warrior Association were in Austin at the state capitol to promote Moral Injury Awareness Day, which is now May 14th in Texas. I believe that's when you told a story about a call that was very impactful for you. Is that right?
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing that?
Sure. Yeah. So at that time, I was kind of working on the north side of Fort Worth, and that area was, we were told it was the most psychiatric calls in the city for whatever reasons. It was just a perfect storm. So we were kind of used to running crazy calls. But yeah, we're just running a normal day, running our tails off, chasing calls around, and we got a call for a pediatric full arrest. And when you hear anything with kids, things get serious real quick. So our ears perked up, and there's a little more hustle
Yeah.
in your step. So we jumped on the truck and took off, and you almost are, when you hear some of those calls go out, you want to be the one there to help, but at the same time, you don't want to be
Right.
there. So you can kind of always feel that in the bottom of your stomach, and just the anticipation of what you may have to walk into. So when we arrived on scene, it was a big, nice 2-story house in a nice neighborhood, and the front door was kicked open. When it's something like that, we don't knock on the door. We pretty much just go in and get the job done. So my engine crew just kind of burst through the front door. And when we did, there was a dad. And this is hard because it's very similar to the story we just heard. Very frantic, walking around, running his hands through his hair, saying, I don't know what happened. He hung himself, had to cut him down. And so we turned to our right, and this was a fancy house. I'll never forget, they had solid white carpet, and there was this little 11-year-old boy laying at the base of the stairs. Just to back up a little bit, we found out later that he had gotten in some trouble, and his dad sent him to his room. He grounded him. I can't remember if he took away his video game or there was something involved with that. He sent him to his room, and then not long after that, he heard a big kind of thud, and he ran up there, and his son had taken his alarm clock cord and tied one end around his ceiling fan and one end around his neck, and he jumped off his bed, and it broke his son's neck, but he had to cut his own son down. And then that's when we kind of walked in. He's at the base of the stairs laying on the carpet, and you go into just work mode, right? We're trained, we know what to do. You kind of push things aside for just a moment as good as you can. And so we were doing everything we could to save this little boy's life, to get him back. He actually still had a pulse at that time, but on that white carpet, there's a halo starting to form around his head where like spinal fluid was coming out of his ears and his nose. And just being on the job for that long, you hold out hope for patients, and you're sitting there praying that it's going to be a different outcome, but you also know on the bottom of your heart, like, this isn't good, right? So we're working on calls like that. It's not uncommon. Like, our hands are shaking sometimes because we're trying to do everything we can as fast as we can, the best we can. Everybody on that crew had little kids, including myself. So we're frantically working. The dad is just, I don't want to say out of his mind in a bad way, but he's like not good. He's running back and forth. He disappears. He's coming back. He's hollering at us, do something, EMS crews show up shortly after that, and it was a newer EMS crew, and they immediately jumped in to help. You could see the immense panic in their face and in just their actions. If we were shaking a little, they were shaking a lot. And we carry a lot of pride in our skills and what we do, so there wasn't pushing out of the way, but at some point, stuff wasn't getting done how we wanted it to get done, so we stepped up and started doing it on our own. And because every second matters in those calls. So I was at his head. I'm a paramedic as well, so I started intubating, and compressions are going. I mean, we're just throwing everything we can at this kiddo. The mom and the sister show up about that time, and the scream that came out of that mom is something I'll never forget, ever. The daughter was just in immense panic. crying. I don't even know quite how to describe the scream that came out of that mom. It was a moan. It thought about this since it really sounded like her soul was being torn in two. Like it was something so deep that I could never even reproduce the sound again. So you can imagine our crew with that scene, doing everything we can. Just the emotions that are running through your head. Dad's panicking. Sister's there just totally losing it. And the mom is just wailing. All in this living room. And it's echoing through this house. So we ended up getting him to a point. Like I said, he had a pulse. We're breathing for him. And I'm getting him to a point where, well, since every second counted, we made a decision instead of working him there, we need to get him going now. So we transitioned him to our cot and started getting him out to the ambulance. Mom and sister, I don't know where the dad was. Mom and sister are following us out there, just screaming, hollering, and just asking us to help them, So, and then comes a dreaded moment where you're going to the hospital on this one. We don't ride in the back of the ambulances as firefighters quite often, but on serious calls we will. So, on that call, you just assume. So we just jumped in, and so all the way to the hospital, working this little boy, and the outcome was not good. Once we got to the hospital, very similar scene. They worked him. They did everything they could, but he had broken his neck, and it was just too much. So, that's one of those calls where it's quiet on the way back to the station when they pick you up at the hospital. Everybody just knows. It sounds kind of morbid. I know you understand, Chief Noakes, but we a lot of times use humor as like a coping mechanism. If the general public heard some of the ways we cope, it wouldn't be good. But that's how we do it. It's not meant to be bad, but on stuff like this, there's no humor in it. There's nothing you can say, and it's just that silent ride where you're just holding it in. So I really don't remember the rest of that shift, but I remember the next month or so, because we had another 11-year-old boy a few shifts later hang himself. Few shifts after that, we had a 16-year-old boy hang himself in his garage with his belt. And a few shifts after that, we had a mom hung herself from her ceiling fan in the kids' playroom upstairs while they're downstairs. And we actually got there quick enough that we had to cut her down. So it was just all this stacked trauma. I can't remember. We started almost keeping a tally because it was so out of the ordinary. I can't remember the number now. I think I probably blocked it out, but it was 11 or 12 absolutely horrific calls back to back in that month. And, that stuff just stacks up. And the way we deal with it the most is just to shove it away and act like it doesn't bother us. And I mean, honestly, in the moment, that's about the only way to deal with some of that stuff. But the stacked effects of those injuries and the traumas that we see, we can say all day long they don't affect us, but what it does is it really starts changing us. Like we start acting differently and we don't even know it.
That's right.
Over a career, there was a point in my life, I mean, it was probably 7 years after this call. I was doing great stuff in life, right? We started a mission organization. I'm serving at my church full time. I'm a firefighter. I'm running a real estate business on the side. I'm raising my family, doing all these things. from the outside, it looked like it was all good and I was doing it in the name of good. But I found myself in this place of just wondering, like, what's the point of all this? Like there was not a lot of meaning in it except to keep me busy and kind of distracted. And that's kind of the place I found myself. And looking back, it was calls like that changed me. I mean, just that one call, or just that month. But I relate to that call a lot. I still carry that little boy with me. I had little kids. I think my daughter was 7, so my boys were probably like 3 and 4. To this day, I think about, especially with my boys, that scene. And like it's like probably one of my pretty deep fears. Like I don't want to ever have to relive that personally because it hurts that much. But it affects the way that I interact with my kids still. And I got to catch myself quite often because I start operating out of that fear and control, thinking I can stop it.
Yeah.
I've had my boys kind of flippantly say stuff like, it'd be better if I wasn't here. Like, you know how that happens. You kind of get onto them or something, or you're in conflict, and it'd be better if I wasn't here. And flips a switch sometimes. We've got some land out in Arkansas, and I told my boys, this was like even last year. I've just seen a lot of stuff. So hey, we've got a huge pond out there, like a mini lake, and they're boys, and they're half me, half my wife. So they're a little ornery sometimes. And Dad, they love to swim across the pond, but it's a big stretch. You can only do it if I'm there, guys. Like, let's 100% do it. I need to at least be watching, or heck, I wanted to be doing it with you.
Yeah.
They asked if they could go down to the pond one day. We were inside cooking dinner or something. And yeah. Go for it. You can swim. Do not get far away from the shore, please. I mean, because I have a whole history of pediatric drownings that I've seen, I walk out there because I just know my boys. They're 2/3 of the way across this pond. And that call, the loss of what I knew those parents experienced jumped into my head immediately. And for a moment, I did not act like I normally would act. And I mean, it flipped something inside of me because of the depth of the hurt that I just got to witness in that call. And so we do have conversations, but it's still something I carry with me. And it's still something, like, as my boys have said certain things like that, it is very difficult for me to react like some parents may, because I've seen the horror of what that would lead to. And if I'm quite honest, like, I don't know, number one, I don't want to, but I don't know how I would move through that.
Yeah.
There's several things there, Cliff, and I appreciate you telling that story, because this is so unique right now, basically telling the two different aspects of probably one of the worst tragedies that can happen in anybody's life, anybody's family's life. And it's kind of like when you're talking about that young police officer that showed up to help you and Hayden, it's like kind of you showing up to that 11-year-old boy there. And when you hear silence among first responders, warriors, same like me, I've seen it after some fairly tough missions, everybody's hurting.
Mm-hmm.
If we're coking and joking, we call it dark humor,
yeah,
is we're trying to make sense of it. So we're trying to cope in the most immature, non-clinical way without showing that we're weak when we're hurting inside, because we can't show there's a chink in our armor. We can't show that this is hurting us. We can't show, and we don't want anybody to know that inside we feel like we failed. And I say this all the time, you know, we do 100 good missions. We only remember the one that went wrong. Because if anything, we wish we could go back and save that one. And the other 100 successes don't really matter. It's the one we keep dwelling on, my mind goes back to. And I think why that sits with you is that there are some things that could be worse than death. And when you heard the shriek of that mom, and I've heard that many times on targets, you're hearing the soul, like you said, ripped out of her, of the loss of her child, which is worse than death for her.
Yeah.
And that's why it still resonates with you today. That's why it probably still wakes you up sometimes at night. That's why when you see your kids 2/3 across the lake and you know all it takes is one gulp of water and they panic and there's no bottom to touch, you're going like, I have to go in to protect them and save them because I don't want to experience what some other moms and dads have experienced, because that is worse than death.
Absolutely.
And where would you go from there? You don't know. You took it to a different level for good because you have God in your life and you know that you could save some lives, that truly Hayden is saving lives.
But you had an experience with a first responder.
Yeah, so hearing your story, I always worried about this, the people that had to experience what I saw. You know, it's like a weird thing. I hate that my son did it. I hate that it caused other people pain. And he didn't know. He didn't know, so I don't know. But I know it caused other people pain. And that officer, you know, again, his face is burned into my soul, And for years, I worried about him. And I had I had contact, but I could never find it again. And I'd reached out to everybody I knew and different places, and no one could find this guy's name for like years. And I always was thinking about him, like worried about the guy, you know. And then one day, for whatever reason, I was really thinking about him. Like I really would love to talk to this guy. I just want him to know I'm okay. Like if, and I wonder if you were able to speak with the family to see if they've, you know, hopefully they've gotten healing. Because my thought was, if he knows I'm okay, my family's okay, like, hey, we're okay. So, you know, I know it was hard for you to see, you know, it was awful, but know that we're okay. So whatever that might do to help his own healing. And one day, again, I'm really thinking about it. It's a true story, and bummed I can't figure out who this guy is. I was sitting in my front of my house about to go to work, and I turned over my phone, literally as I'm thinking about this guy, and I see Sergeant John in my phone, just one contact. I don't know what I did on my phone.
Wow.
And I went, doop. And I tried to call me to answer, and ended up texting him. And this past year, I took him to lunch. And we ate one-on-one lunch, and you know, it messed him. It hurt him.
Yeah.
Like me, he remembers, you know, it's like when you're in that sort of alertness, somehow the brain works, everything becomes more real. And like the smells, he can still smell it. And Hayden had aspirated. And then obviously the body starts shutting down, everything's, you know, you guys know how that works. But it was burning his brain. It was burning my brain for a long time. Thank God it's no longer like that for me. And then right after that, he had gotten thyroid cancer. And, you know, had a tough go. I think he might even, I think he might have gone through a remarriage and stuff. And I'm like, God, man, just, but I got to see him and tell him, like, look, brother, you don't think I love you, man. And we're forever tied to that moment, that one moment in time our lives came together. And that's why I love this organization so much. Because I know, you know, having had PTSD, it's real. I know it's real. I had to go through some stuff to get it healed. And thank God I was able, through my West Point buddies, took me some, you know, a variety of healing retreats, and I got the healing that I needed. And I just wanted him to just whatever micro little bit it might help. Just don't worry about us. Whatever you got to do to heal, and if I can help, let me know. But you got to worry about us. We're good. We're good, brother. And it was powerful. It was powerful for me, and I know it was powerful for him.
Yeah.
See each other after 5 years.
I know we had to appreciate that because that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen where someone we either help or try to help a tragic scene we're on, people don't reach out to the police officers or firefighters or EMS really. Now, I'm not blaming them or being critical because they probably don't want to relive that. But the fact that you did that, I can guarantee you meant the world to him, that you, one, remembered him and you cared enough to reach out. So I appreciate that very much, man. That's solid.
Thank you.
You know what? Sometimes it is too, Neil. I think that we have this false expectation of our men and women in uniform, that they're Superman and Superwoman coming,
Yep.
and that they're unaffected by life's tragedies, but they're actually the good guys with soft hearts. That's why they're doing the job that they're doing, and they want to save people. They want to help people. And when life's tragedies, doesn't have to be their own. They care so much, not even their own, that they're going to hurt just as bad as the stranger that they're helping. And now that is a part of life, and that is the moral injury that we talk about that needs to be healed. And the technique or the tactic of avoidance is what we're talking about when you put it on the shelf.
Absolutely.
I don't want to deal with it. I'm just going to try to avoid it. Maybe leads to, now I'm going to cover it up with something else, self, medicate, whatever it is. You're going to cover it with something because I want to avoid it. I don't want to deal with it. Those images are in our mind. The sounds are in our mind. Overseas, we still smell the iron in the air from the blood. And you live with that. And every little place that some of that trauma happened, occupational trauma, life's trauma happened, you leave a little piece of your soul there. And you're never whole. And then how you move on from there. And I think that's where God comes in and says, I got you. However that happens.
Absolutely. I think it's also interesting because we all have this, we're not robots, but I think we all carry this like warriors mentality, military, first responders, everybody. Like we want to be the one when that bad call comes in, we want to be the one in there helping. We want to be making a difference. And we think as part of that warrior's mentality that we can't be vulnerable at the same time, like it's almost like this facade we have to, in our heads, continue to carry, like, no, this doesn't bother me because I'm a warrior. And warriors are tough, right? And you can't be bothered by this stuff if you're a warrior. And man, that's not true. That's not true at all. Like there's something about being vulnerable and kind of working through that stuff and admitting that, not every call bothers you. We go on horrific calls all the time, and not everyone bothers you for whatever reason. The hard part is, like, I don't get to choose what bothers me. Like I don't get to pick. I ain't gonna let that bother me, but this one is. It just does.
We talked about in the last conversation, like truth be told, in life's journey for all of us, there's differences and there's some similarities, but in all of our lives, we don't choose the wars and battles that we have to fight. They kind of choose us, and then we got to figure out how to fight it, how to deal with it, how to cope with it.
Absolutely.
And then you hear things like, hey, God's going to give you what you can handle. And you're like, really? He must think very highly of me because I wish I could just have a little less more than this. Like I'm tired of shouldering the weight. Like, my goodness.
I know it's something you're helping out with a lot at the Fort Worth Fire Department, it kind of shouldering some of that weight as part of the wellness unit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very proud of the fact that in Fort Worth we have the police wellness unit and the fire wellness unit actually working together, sharing resources, sharing stories, sharing support, not just for our side of the hall or our side of the building. We're kind of sharing across the table, like in ways I've never seen before. Can you tell me a little bit about this journey with the creation of the wellness unit? You're becoming part of it, and also how you were introduced to AWA and R3.
Yeah. So historically, I'll back up just a hair. fire chaplains are not historically firefighters. I don't know if you know that. So usually they're like a pastor or a community member that kind of steps up and volunteers. Great people. But I believe it was in the early 70s. We had a firefighter that stepped up and wanted to start something new. And so he started a chaplain program. Skip forward. Now there's a Federation of Fire Chaplains is a national organization that started from a Fort Worth firefighter who decided to be a chaplain.
Oh, that all started in
That
Fort
all
Worth.
started
Wow.
with
Okay.
Schoffer. So we have a lot to thank him for kind of starting that. So in Fort Worth, fire chaplains are firefighters as well. They've been volunteer, but in the last probably 7 years or so, 8 years, we've transitioned into full-time paid positions. And as what that does is just allow us to be there for our guys. So a lot of fire chaplains are traditionally outward facing. They take care of the public on bad calls. Like this call we heard, they would have showed up on that and worked with the families. We're a large department, and we have traditionally been inward facing. We have 1,100 firefighters. I think we just merged with EMS. We got 600 EMS personnel. We've always had one fire chaplain up until a year ago. We got two. So you can imagine we're super overwhelmed just taking care of our own guys.
Yes.
So we're very inward facing. When I stepped in 2 years ago, I took over for a chaplain, Brent Sanderson, who had been starting to form something. And honestly, by yourself in this role, it's just miserable. He needed a break. So that's about the time I stepped in and very quickly started realizing this is not something I could do by myself. Like I knew I was being called to something to help out my brothers and sisters in some way, but I knew I couldn't do it. So started, there's not really a fire chaplain school. a lot of it is figuring it out as you go. Yeah. So started looking at some of the issues that our guys are facing. I started trying to build resources specific to those issues. So like divorce rate is super high in first responders.
Do you count the third and fourth marriages too?
Well, we count them all.
It's tough.
Yeah. Suicide is cancer has jumped up as one of the leading causes of death. Like fires don't kill firefighters as much as cancer, and now suicide. Suicide is like right there now. So we're trying to build these programs to facilitate these things, but the way it always has been is we are so reactive. Like we got to wait for the thing to happen, and then we try to come alongside somebody and help them out. Yeah. And very quickly, that just wasn't good enough for me. Like it's great that I can be there as a chaplain, and that's really traditionally what a chaplain does. Something bad happens, and here's the chaplain. But what would it look like if we started addressing the issues before they were even issues? And then we didn't have to cross the bridge of the tragedy or the divorce or the suicide or the drug-addicted firefighter, right? And so we started building programs out. Within that, I don't know, first 6 months of me becoming a chaplain, somehow, I mean, I know how God set it up, but somebody came to me and said, hey, there's this person I met with her. I don't think I'm the person to meet with her. I think you're the person to meet with her. Her name was Anna.
And your world got rocked.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never been the same. Yeah. So, new to this role, part of my job is even like just keeping up community relationships. So I kind of felt like that's what this meeting was. So I'm like, I got a golf cart showing around our training center. I'm thinking she's just wanting to see what a firefighter does, right? We go to Station 17. We eat lunch together with the crew. I'm like trying to like introduce her. That's not what she was there for. We get back to my office and she starts laying out this dream. Well, they're already doing it. American Warrior is, but like this dream of like how it could interact with first responders and make a huge impact of what if we proactively sent guys on these retreats, these program trips, and they get time away and they get to work through their trauma. And I didn't have any frame of reference what moral injury was,
Right.
but she educated me on that. And I was kind of like shocked, number one, that it was all free to our first responders, and that she was just there offering it like, or wrapped up with a bow on it, and like, hey, here's this thing, and you can have it.
Seemed too good to be true.
It did. It did. And from there, the ball just got rolling. We sent a group of 8, including myself, just to kind of vet it out. And these were our guys that have their stuff together, right? This is our peer support team. Just guys that are always there to help out their brothers and sisters when they need it. And I wanted them to assess this program. We went on that 5-day program. Everybody had something to work through all of a sudden. You know, we look at each other and go, oh, you know, Neil's he's got his stuff together. He's pretty healthy. When you get away with God and then you have this space to like finally slow down, you start peeling back the layers. There's things there that we haven't looked at for a long time. I mean, childhood trauma came up for multiple people. Childhood abuse. All sorts of just story. One guy was walking through cancer at the time and just talking about his fear. Like all of these things started just rolling out. And these are our guys that have everything together. Yeah. And so afterwards, it was like, if these are the guys that are strong and resilient and they have stuff to work through, man, how much does our whole department like need to participate in something like this? So once again, Anna's back in my office. And we kind of had this conversation of it needs to be something more. Like there needs to be something more built out for our guys. Like what would it look like if we started working with our police department and fire? Because we're all on the same exact calls. That call I talked about earlier, there were police officers there witnessing the same exact thing.
Yeah.
So what would it look like if we could have the reactive net on the backside to deal with some of the trauma, but also this proactive approach where, hey, you don't have to be falling apart. It's like working out, right? Like you can hit something on the front side, you can front load these things so that when you do have this traumatic call, you already are more resilient, more rested, have a better understanding of how to work through trauma as you're going through it.
Right.
And so out of that formulated I'm not saying it was me and Anna. There was a lot of people involved with it, but out of that formulated this R3 program, which really takes a look at first responder trauma and addressing moral injury specific to first responders. And that was birthed right here in Fort Worth with Fort Worth FD and Fort Worth PD, and a relationship that just kind of blossomed out of actually one of your chiefs, Buck Wheeler. We were in a meeting today, or not today. We were in a meeting one day, and I just posed because my dad's a police officer, right? I've sat there and seen him cry. He's talked about the typical cop nightmare of somebody breaks into your house and you can't squeeze the trigger on your gun to shoot them, and the bullets are just like rolling out of the end, right? I've heard other cops tell this story, and I've heard my dad cry talking about it. And so I have this we love cops. Fort Worth firefighters, we get along great with Fort Worth PD, but I have this like deeper connection because my dad's a cop, and so it's not just about what I can do for firefighters. So I remember asking Buck Wheeler one day, what would it look like if we worked together in this thing? Like, what if we joined forces and we presented this united front as first responders and said, we're doing this together? Because as far as I know, nobody's ever done that. And he looked at me kind of wild-eyed, and he said, I'll never forget, he goes, are you serious? Like, do you actually think, like, you're serious right now that you would want to do that with us? Absolutely. If you guys are serious, like I have no authority. I have not asked any permission, but yes, 100%. Let's do this. I'm a
Good.
chaplain. I'm not a chief. Let's do this thing. And that just started this conversation. And so, yeah, we're doing something different in Fort Worth. We're trying to change something. We want to represent like what it can be. I mean, and we're still in the infancy stage. We're building the plane as we're flying it type of situation.
It makes so much sense. You know, initially when we were getting this going, I actually gave a brief to the lemonade stand kids of Fort Worth.
Yeah.
The lemonade stand kids of Fort Worth are some of the coolest little kids that do so much good in Fort Worth. And, you know, they just every year they set up for I think it's a Colonial golf tournament. And they get their little lemonade stand out there and they run around their golf carts and give people rides back and forth and just ask for donations. And they raise funds for good causes. And this one year, a couple of years back, several years back now, time goes by fast, I got a chance to get up there amongst other nonprofits and kind of give them our pitch and what we're trying to do. And so here are these young kids. I mean, I'm talking junior high school up to like 9th grade kids. I think there was a couple about yay high, little, and they're looking at me like, what you got? And I was like, you know, if you have someone you love, your mom, your dad, someone you care about, if something bad happens to them, you know, they get injured or something, don't you want whoever's going to show up to be in the best possible mind state, physical state, in which way to render the best care and everything they got to save the person you love? And they're like, of course. And it made sense to them. That yes, we want the best first responders coming to our aid, our mom and dad's aid, yes. And then all of us nonprofit people, we go outside and you have to wait 10 to 20 minutes of this very anxious moment for these kids to deliberate on only one nonprofit they're going to get behind and support. And they came out and said, American Horror Association, you won. It makes sense. Let's equip our first responders, those that are here to provide or protect and save the people we love within our community. Let's give them the best tools so they can do the best job possible. And that means making sure that their souls are strong.
Yeah.
Their mind is strong. They're physically able, and they'll be there in the worst circumstances to do the best they can. And of course, if it doesn't go right, which sometimes it's really out of their hands, we'll be there for them as well.
And it's also like on the 100% that, but how great is it that we're sending dads and moms back to their families, right? Back to their kids, whole and healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're always going to have stuff we got to work through. It's part of the job. We can't get away from it. But man, I want to be a better dad, right?
Yeah.
I want the tools. I want to know how to move through trauma and not just let it like stop me in my tracks. So we're not just having an impact on the community, but man, 1,100 firefighters and their families. How many? 3,000-ish police officers and their families. We're having an impact on that.
You know, one of the things I want to touch upon, because I know it's significantly high within the military, especially in the special operations community. So I'm thinking that must be similar to some degree within the first responder community. The suicide rate amongst our children within our community is 3 to 4 times higher than in the normal population. And what I found out, and I think, and I know to be true to whatever degree, is that if the parents, whatever your job is or anything, cannot heal from the wounds to their soul, the many cuts to their soul, they're going to bleed on those around them, those that they love. And so if it's the hardest thing to do is to not bring the work home. Leave the stress, leave the anxiety, leave the bad call at home. But we end up bringing it home. And they can sense it. They can feel it. It doesn't even have to be said. They can feel the tension in the room. They could feel the stress, and it compounds over time. I had another friend in the team, and his 12-year-old son was so done with his dad being gone overseas, deployed and fighting, and all that stress and strain that they would hear the fights and everything going on. He took a bus downtown San Diego to the Horton Plaza, went up to the 5-story parking garage, and just jumped off. And no one saw it coming. But inside, he was hurting, but it was being compounded from life situations. and then the extra occupational pressure and work that is not a normal strain. And I think we're so front side focused a lot of times on the job, that we sometimes bring that home. I had another friend, and I told him, hey, the one thing you can do is anytime any of your kids come in the room, even if you're just doing that 1,000-yard stare, you're focused, and you're thinking about things you think are so important. Anytime any of your kids walk in the room, just stand up. If you stand up and greet them, it'll take you out of the mindset of whatever your mind was running down, and you'll focus on your kid for a moment. And maybe that could change that dynamic of taking that work home and breaking that cycle, because they could see it in you. They could see your mind somewhere else, your mind there, not there, when they want it there. Just stand up. And that might change the whole dynamic. And something as simple as that. Later on, he came back and was like, that really worked. that really worked. I didn't even think about that. And I was like, yeah, we got, like we say in the military, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Just keep it simple. Just do one little change, and maybe that might help. Maybe.
That's what a lot of, I know first responders and I believe military want, or what's something I can do? Don't just tell me something's not right.
Yeah.
Give me tools to fix it. And that's something you just mentioned, give me the tools. I want to be a better dad. Whatever it is you want to be. I want to be a better wife or a husband or a better firefighter or a better police officer, whatever it is. And some talk about like going to Warriors Refuge, they come away with these tools. Was there anything that you took away from that week? Any tools that you found were the most helpful for you?
Let me think on that. Yeah, I mean, if I'm honest, I was I've just walked through 2 cancer treatments.
Yeah.
So I was building tools because I had to when I went on that. But I would say on that trip, the most valuable thing that I kind of took away was just like just making space, right?
Yeah.
We are not good at stopping and slowing down and just taking a breath. We're doers, but we're not good at just being. There might be a lot of scriptures about that.
Yes.
There might be somebody that created us in a certain way. But on that trip, I actually got in trouble because they kind of bragged. There's 33,000 acres, and they said, you can hike 12 miles in any direction. So I picked a peak way out there at Rankin Ranch, and I told the other firefighters, I'm going there. I'm going to sit on top of that mountain and just spend some time. And they're like, you're crazy, dude. It's going to take you like 2 days. Well, 3 hours later, I was sitting on top of this mountain. Nice. And it wasn't as far as they thought. And the eagles are soaring around me. The sun's going down. I'm in this golden grass sitting up against this oak tree. And just breathing, right? Just taking a breath and like exhaling and going and just relaxing. And not doing anything, not thinking about anything. And I think that moment sticks out to me of like, I need more of this in my life, because I feel like me right now, right? I don't have a million things pulling me sideways. I'm not like being drugged down. I feel strong, and so I think the number one thing for me was like figuring out, and I still use this tool all the time when I feel myself getting ramped up like that. I said earlier, we got a place out in Arkansas. And my wife knows now too. I usually am telling her like, I need to go to Arkansas. Yeah. And I'll get out there for a weekend, and I just sit underneath a tree out there, sometimes for a day or two, and just breathe and just relax, let it go.
They can be so powerful. Yeah. And you're right. I mean, scripture over and over. I think it's Psalms 46:10 is the first part, be still and know that I am God. God is telling us to be still. There's another translation of that, and it says, not be still, it says let go.
Yeah.
And know that I'm God. And I think you combine those two things. That's what we all need from time to time, but we don't do it. We want constant action where we crave the stress.
Yeah.
But if you're still and you just kind of let go and give it to God, that's, for me anyway, when I'm able to really kind of reset a little bit. I don't have to be in control. I don't have to know all the answers. I don't have to be going 100 miles an hour. But it's hard for us to do sometimes unless we're in a place like that where you can just breathe and watch eagles.
Yeah. Yeah. And so for me, Psalms 23, I I go to that place quite often. This shepherd that has everything I need. And what's the first thing he kind of like asks you to do? I'm going to lead you into these fields where you just rest, right? Beside these quiet streams.
Still waters.
Yeah. I mean, it goes on even like this. You can even, once you learn that, this valley where death shadows over you, you don't even, there's no fear in that anymore. What you learn in some of these processes, this way of being and living. And I love it towards the end that it kind of says the why, like, because I'm restoring your soul. I'm bringing restoration to this thing that has been damaged, and I'm going to restore it. And guess what? Me and you are going to live together. We're going to make this place our home, right? This is where we live, us in Christ. Man. And so if you ever see a skinny white boy sitting underneath a big pine tree in Arkansas, he's probably thinking about Psalms 23. Yeah.
I think all of us here too, what I've noticed about our modern day of life, our modern way of life, I would say, is that we spend so much time focused on everything but our soul.
Yeah.
Even though we know that the soul is the one eternal force that resides in all of us. 8 billion people walking this earth, not one of us are the same. It's because the soul. And the soul is the personality, that person, that individual that is in that, encapsulated in the physical form, in that flesh for a moment. But we'll work out for 2 hours a day. We'll do this for an hour, this for 3 hours. We're focused, headstrong on working and being successful at life, although we know it's finite. And the soul is eternal. And so one of the, I guess, our little concept of putting together, getting lost in the mountains to find yourself in the city, is that you get back to good by being attuned to your soul and realizing like it needs to be refreshed. It needs to be nourished from over and over, time and time again, constantly, especially in the day and age that we're living in, where things are so complicated and complex. Like I think in society, it's just more confusion. And then going back all the way to Hayden and this younger generation, we didn't have to deal with this shit when we were growing up. We didn't have to deal with all these other things coming from the external, affecting their internal, when they're not even mature enough. The studies haven't been done. Like you said, we're building a plane in flight, but it's hurting our kids because it's too much sometimes, and they don't realize it, and we don't realize it because we're trying to keep the lights on. And we got to protect the kids. We got to protect everybody, and we got to protect the soul, I think, more than ever. That's what I truly believe, and that's why we have the American Warrior Association, all the things we're trying to do. So many commonalities.
And I tell you, one of the reasons we're able to do what we do is we have great people supporting us. Brad, you've been an incredible supporter of all they're doing for a long time. And as you mentioned earlier, we wouldn't have this studio if you hadn't given us the space to get all this set up and ready to go. Thank you very much. We really needed this. Didn't really have much of a budget to get anything done, but with your help, we didn't have to worry about that.
It's a nice studio.
I tell you what, they knocked this out and made it look sharp. And I'll be honest, I don't really even know how you first connected with AWA.
I don't know. I connected it through Anna, I think, first. Or maybe, I mean, obviously I know John Michael and Mark. Honestly, I don't know. I've been to some events at the Academy with you when they were announcing some of this stuff. So I don't know. You look at, and I can tell you, it's like in my world that I'm working in suicide prevention, it's amazing how many principals and superintendents don't want to do anything. And tools are not something that they're open to. We don't have a problem. And it comes from, and then therefore in those districts, nothing happens, right? And they still have problems, right? No resources, no capabilities, because the leadership literally doesn't buy into it. And you've seen it in any organization. And I got to commend you, Chief, as a citizen of Fort Worth, someone who's very active in the city, and know a lot of people. I don't know that these kind of programs get buy-in, even if you had them, if people at the top aren't reinforcing the message of all the stuff that you did. I know now you're retired, but I saw it in action. I saw the legacy you did, your own vulnerability, and that's leadership 101, right? And if you hadn't been bought in, and your chief hadn't been bought in to programs like this, I mean, nothing changes at that point. And even if you had a program, but if you're not reinforcing it from the top and saying it's okay to go get help, to go connect with your soul, and not living by it yourself. I'd heard, I think this is true. You went on one of the first ones, right? I believe.
The
trips.
Warriors Refuge?
Yeah.
No, I did not.
Did you go to? Have you been to the mountain?
I have not.
Okay.
Yeah, we had.
Then you need to,
absolutely.
because I guess like it's anything with leadership. If you're not bought into it at the top, then the organization is not going to be bought into.
Well, and the funny thing is, we talked about John, Michael, and Mark. Mark and I were speaking at a fundraiser for a different organization one time, and he said, "You really ought to go to that." And without skipping a beat, the next thing that came out of my mouth was, I really need to set a good example for officers, and the best way to set the example is by going. I said, I don't really need it. And before I could say another word, Mark went, "Whoa, hold on. What did you just say?" And it hit me what I did. I was doing the same thing I'm telling officers not to do. Well, yeah, it's good for everybody else, but I don't really need it.
I'm good. Yeah.
I'm good. Yeah, it's okay for you to not be okay, but I'm good. Don't worry about me. And that's when it hit me. And it's like almost immediately my brain made a shift. And I went, man, I'm really not okay. And I don't want to admit it. Okay, yeah, I do need to go. I've got to go. And yes, I do want to do it to set an example for everyone else. Don't ask somebody to do it if you're not willing to do it yourself, right? First of all, first and foremost. But being willing to say, you know what? I need this just as much as you do. And that's why I'm going to go too.
And that was my reaction to counseling too, originally. Losing Hayden, it took me a little bit of time to what was my ego or whatever it was, the stigma around it. Mm-hmm. Whatever you want to call it, it's soul work. Getting through that sort of mental blocks that you don't need it. I still go to counseling. I don't know if I need it anymore, but it's part of my release. It's part of my soul work, whatever it is for you. We all need it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think everybody does.
Yeah, I've got a saying written on my board that you can't lead somebody somewhere you haven't been. And I think that's what's so important, is that we not only lead ourselves somewhere, we really can't lead anybody else. We can't even lead ourselves. So especially like as leaders, it's great to sit there and say, this is good. But man, are we partaking in that goodness as well,
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not always easy to be vulnerable.
Vulnerable is a hard thing, especially for men.
Yeah. No doubt.
No one likes to show a chink in their armor. I know we, within the military ranks, especially special operations, we're all about negative reinforcement.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not a lot of positive reinforcement there. Hey, what are you doing over there in the, medical line? Something wrong? Oh, no, never mind. I'm good. No one wants to show, no one wants to ask for help. No one wants anything. But the truth is, life's tough. Mm-hmm. Life is just freaking tough. And then when you finally become a man, when you start taking care of other people, that's when you really become a man. Life gets a lot tougher because you're in the back seat. You're taking care of everybody in the front seat now. And so your health and well-being becomes a far, far second, if not just straight last. Your wife, your kids, I would say even, especially concerning life, the family dog is more important than you at that point. And you forget to start taking care of yourself. You forget self-help. I don't need no self-help. I got this. I'm going to go to the gym, push some iron around, whatever it is. But the truth is like we need to hear the words of affirmation over and over again that our God loves us and that we're forgiven and that we have grace and then we can give that to the people we love around us. And we need to hear all these things and we need to do all those things. It's all words, right? I go to therapy. Let you go to therapy, your buddies will spark up. But if I said, I'm going to go gym workout, they'll be, oh yeah, go get a good one, crush it. But in the same, that's what we're saying. I'm fortifying my mind. I'm fortifying my soul Just the same as I'm going to go do some benching. I'm strengthening myself. Why can't we say we're strengthening ourselves in mind, body, and soul? And that's what's been the issue. And now we're flipping the script like you did. And we're saying, hey, we want to put the soul first because that's actually eternal.
Yeah.
We'll do all those other things too. But if our soul's right, if our soul is rested, it doesn't matter if your feet are tired. It doesn't matter if your body's fatigued. The soul is rested. We'll be good. We'll get through this. We'll get through anything. And if we do that in the foreground, then it doesn't have to be after a tragedy happens where it's like, what do we do now? That's the hope. And I think that's what we're all doing here. And I got to tell you what, from the stories you both have shared on that significant tragedy from both sides, which is so unique, and seeing how much good is coming out of it, how many lives, you will never know how many lives have been saved, how many lives have been touched, how many screams of anguish that maybe others will never have to hear. Maybe one day in heaven we'll all know, but you guys did good. Well done.
Oh, no doubt about
Well
it.
done.
Let me ask you, just kind of closing it out. Say, I'm going to ask each of you a little bit different question, but if you were able to talk with another firefighter or say an officer, because I know you talk with my officers as well. They're not mine anymore, are they? I still claim them though. I still claim them. They're the best people in the world. They may be dealing with a moral injury, and I always like to explain it's witnessing, perpetuating, or failing to stop something that goes against your moral compass. It's an internal wound, like a wound to the soul. And if unaddressed, it can become a clinical issue like PTSD. So the idea, like you said, is do that work on the front end. But if you were to have some advice for another first responder or member of our military service that is dealing with some internal wounds, those moral injuries, what would your advice be?
That's a great question. So for me, most often the first thing I do is just say, hey, you're not the only one.
Yeah.
You know, everybody that I talk with is like wearing a wet blanket on them, you know, like they're weighed down. They feel like trauma isolates you. It really does. It isolates you. You feel like this is mine. I have to carry it. I'm the only one that feels like this. So for our first responders, man, one of the main things I try to do is just help them take off that wet blanket and say, like, you're not the only one. Like, I'd start throwing some stats out. We've got like 200 firefighters in counseling right now. Are you serious? Yeah. You're not only not the only one. There's a lot of people dealing with a lot of things, you know? So trying to remove that isolation factor out pretty quickly seems to open up the door to then be like, hey, I'm with you now.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you're also not alone in this because I'm with you. If you ain't got nobody else, I'm here.
Yes, sir.
And I'll walk through you with it. And then just, I mean, honestly, man, for firefighters, counseling is new to us.
Yeah.
Still highly rejected by most, but counseling is new. Or it's starting to get more normalized. So, honesty goes a long ways with somebody. Like, you don't have to fluff nobody's feathers. You don't have to be impressive. They just need to know that they're not the only one and that somebody's there that actually cares. Right?
Yeah. Agreed.
And I think we kind of have a little bit of benefit over cops in that we work in groups, right? We have a crew of 4 at every station minimum. So we kind of naturally have that built in to where when we run a tough call, we're driving back with 4 other guys, cracking jokes or talking about it and debriefing each other. We're police officers, a lot of times they run a bad call, they're getting back in a car by themselves and they're back in it. So
yeah. Instead of a lazy boy with a big screen TV and a kitchen.
Oh, here we go.
Hey, I'm just saying.
I've been in your office. Yeah.
This is why firefighters
talking about lazy boys.
Cops have boxing matches all the time because they have that like occupational.
Yeah, but like seriously, this stuff is, it can be fixed, you know?
Right.
It may take a while. I mean, it's a journey. We're all on a journey, right? We've all had stuff happen. We all have seen something, but the only way through this thing is to walk through it. Like, you can't go around it.
You know, I was telling the Border Patrol guys, Dr. Carson and I were down there months ago at the border. We're talking to these Border Patrol folks, and you know what I told them? I said, you know what? No one told you when you're signing up, when you went through training and everything, that you're going to love this job, but it's going to suck. You're going to love it, but it's going to suck. And I'm not going to be able to tell you, explain to you, or get you to feel with all your, you know, the reality of it, how it's going to suck, but it's going to suck. And then they're like, yeah, you're right. We love our jobs, but it's tough sometimes. It's tough finding a child drown on the border, you know, in the Rio Grande and stuff like that. It's tough coming into these circumstances that as humans, we don't want to really see. We don't want to see the tragedies of life. And then I, you know, explained to them that, like, you know, every other, even our sports, even baseball, you have batting practice that everybody will go to. And they'll batting practice over and over again, through repetition, just like we do in a lot of training before they actually get up to bat, you know, in their life. But there is none of that for preparing your soul and what you're going to experience and some of the worst tragedies you could come into in these occupations. And really, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about preparing the soul for life.
Yeah.
Preemptively. And hopefully not after, but after too, though, something, you know, traumatic happens. But we got to get you spiritually prepared before you go into battle, during the battle, and then after the battle. So it just never should stop. It's constant, right? And then even just in regular life, in that we have, like, if you're kind of lost nowadays, if your soul's not in the right spot and you're not looking up to God. I think it's harder on a lot of folks out there that are still searching to fill that hole that might, you know, that empty hole that's in their soul. If they don't put it, you know, fill it with God, I think it's a lot tougher than what it could be.
Yeah, no question. And you know, when I think of the training, I think that's what your movie did. I took it as training for me, what I needed to be doing. And it wasn't like pointing a finger at me, you suck as a dad because you haven't done this. It was just opening my eyes to something that I was taking for granted. And that's training you've been able to provide to, I don't know how many people through the movie, almost 13. Anybody who hasn't seen it, pull it right up on YouTube.
It's on Tubi.
Free.
Amazon.
Tubi, Amazon.
We'll put that link on this.
Absolutely. And what other digital things have you got out like that you like people to watch?
Most recently, we launched goodgamer.org.
Yeah.
I partnered with the #1 resilience expert, or one of the top ones in the country, and a top video gamer. And we did a 12-part video series with a parental portal and some parental questions and talking points and a little quiz. If you pass it, which you will if you watch it, but you get a little certificate of completion signed by both of them. Goodgamer.org. We just launched it. It's done really, really well. Really interactive videos of how to game safely. How can we? Because I still like even in Hayden's, I like video games.
Yeah.
It's like anything, you know. But there's a way, and open your eyes, because parents just don't know some of the downsides. Or what it looks like, the downside. So it's a very similar thing.
Well, brother, you're doing some great stuff, and I appreciate the fact that you're wanting to come and talk about the hardest time in your life, I'm sure. But I also appreciate, like Will said, you're turning tragedy into a triumph by carrying on this legacy with Hayden's name being what's promoting all these wonderful things that I have no doubt already have and will continue to save the lives specifically of young people. Also, the fact that you stayed so connected with his friends, and it was personal. And as much as it did for you, I can't imagine what it did for those young men to be able to see you able to be resilient despite all this, and you were still there for them no matter what. It says a lot about you. And I tell you what, Cliff, it's great having you here as well. yeah, bringing R3 and AWA into Fort Worth fire and police departments was a team effort, but there are some people who played critical roles and put in a whole lot of work, and you're one of them. Don't think that what I noticed, I know you don't look for credit, but you did some work that I don't know if anybody else would have done it. And the idea you had about combining PD and FD together, absolutely brilliant. And I think it was one of the best things we could have done for the health of both of our organizations combined. And I do appreciate it. I mean, I know we talked about some very sad things today, but you two lifted my spirits a great deal. And every time I'm around you guys, you do that. I appreciate you very much. And I'll let you have the last word, but one thing I was going to suggest is maybe we throw the chaplain under the bus here when we're done.
Absolutely.
We're closing out our podcast with a word of prayer.
Nice.
And again, I'll let you close out the podcast itself. Would you mind saying that prayer for us?
Absolutely.
Well, I'll tell you, human suffering is very real. And there's just so many different levels to it. And I think we're all interconnected by it in a lot of ways, and no one's a stranger to it. And no one's going to get out of this life unscathed. That's just the truth. And all you can do is the best you can, especially to protect those you love, whether it's in harm's way, at home, the people closest to you. You just really never know. You don't know when tragic's going to strike. But we always have to just be as vigilant as we can, try to love as much as we can, hold those that we love as much as often as you can, because you just don't know. Even when you do everything right, life has a way of throwing curveballs. And for our children, even if everything's going right, at the end of the day, once you walk out the door, all you can do is get on your knees and pray to Almighty God for that extra blanket of safety and concern for them. Because life happens, and it's nobody's fault. And one day it all makes sense. And I believe it all makes sense in the afterlife when we all have that big reunion in the sky called heaven. I'm sure that you will see Hayden again. I'm sure of it. I'll see my brothers again. You'll see your brothers again and family, and you will too, Cliff. And everybody out there will. I'm sure of it. Look to God, and everything will sort itself out. So with that being said, since we have the professional chaplain here of the Fort Worth Fire Department, if you could close us out in a good prayer, that would be epic.
Absolutely. Father, we just thank you for just everything you did here today. And I'm just reminded that whether we go up to the most high places, you're there. And in the deepest places that we find ourselves, Father, you're also there. And you comfort us and you bring us hope. And we heard that in that story, in the stories today, Father, that just like I said earlier, there's somebody that's there. We're not alone in our situation. There's somebody that cares. And there's somebody that wants to walk with us through these things that we face, and that's you, God. So we just thank you for that. We thank you for what you're doing in the lives of our first responders and our military, God, and just in the lives of these men I'm sitting with. And we just pray that we continue to lean on you as you restore our souls. In your name we pray. Amen.